All right, so today we are diving deep into FHIR.
FHIR.
FHIR, in case, you were wondering how to spell it.
Right.
And you've probably heard it's like kind of a big deal in healthcare.
Yeah.
Because everyone's talking about how it's going to make this seamless flow of information possible, which has been like notoriously difficult to achieve, right?
It has.
Yeah.
It has been.
But we've got all these videos lined up from like FHIR gurus, and I have to say, like, getting a sneak peek,
Mm-hmm.
it really feels like we're about to unlock the secrets to, like, a truly connected healthcare system.
Yeah, I mean, there's a buzz around it, and there's a buzz around it for good reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think what's really exciting here is, like, they're really changing the game.
Okay.
Because they looked at something that we use every single day, which is the internet.
Right.
And they said, how can we apply these same principles to healthcare data?
Yeah, it's like they looked at how easily, we browse websites and we share files and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, why can't healthcare data work that same way?
Exactly.
And I think one of the experts actually even called FHIR resources like the web pages of healthcare data.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's
Yeah.
like taking each piece of information.
Yeah.
So whether that's your medical history, a lab result, you name it, and it's giving it essentially its own digital address,
Right.
ready to be accessed by authorized systems, of course,
Yeah.
when it's needed.
Securely. Yeah.
Huge departure from, the old clunky systems
Totally.
that we used to have.
Yeah, it really highlights that whole interoperability thing that everyone's always talking about. It's like instead of these isolated islands of information,
Right.
you could have this like connected network where data is just flowing freely, securely
Yeah.
between hospitals, clinics, labs, you name it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they're trying to solve.
Right.
It's like establishing that common language
Right.
so that all these systems can talk to each other
Right.
without needing like a team of translators to decipher it all.
Right. So if FHIR is kind of like this common language, how do we make sure that everyone is like speaking the same dialect, so to speak?
Oh, that's a great question.
Right.
Because healthcare, it's so nuanced.
Yes.
And context is everything. So FHIR, they thought of this. They have a two-pronged approach.
Okay.
The first thing is you have profiles.
Mm-hmm.
And profiles are basically customizations for specific situations.
Okay.
So let's just imagine a basic patient resource.
Okay.
That's like your starting point.
Got it.
Profiles allow you to create variations on that, tailored for, let's say, a U.S. hospital
Okay.
or a clinic in Europe
Okay.
or even a research study, you name it.
So it's like adding dialects to the language, basically.
Yes, exactly. Making sure those nuances are understood.
Got it. Okay. Then that makes sense. But I'm guessing there are even more layers to this whole customization thing.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
Right.
There are.
Yeah.
So on top of those profiles, we also have what are called implementation guides.
Okay.
And these are basically like incredibly detailed instruction manuals
Okay.
for very specific scenarios. Like, let's just say, sharing patient summaries between countries
Got it.
or standardizing how we collect data for, like, quality measures.
Okay. I'm getting like serious Lego Master Builder vibes here.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I love that.
It's like we have the basic building blocks.
Yes.
And then we've got the specialized pieces and instructions
Exactly.
to create something truly amazing.
And just like with Lego, they really emphasize reusability.
Okay.
So you can use the same basic resources, customize them with your profiles, follow those implementation guides, and you can create countless different applications,
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
which is key because we know healthcare is anything but one size fits all.
Right. And speaking of unique scenarios, because that's, healthcare in a nutshell, one of the videos touched on this idea of the 80-20 rule in FHIR. It seems like they're really like tackling the 80% of like common healthcare data needs,
Right.
but also acknowledging that there are always going to be those curveballs, those unique cases.
Always. And they're like, let's address those common needs.
Right.
But for that other 20%, they created extensions,
Okay.
which essentially allow you to add custom data elements to those existing resources.
So it's like having that standardized foundation,
Yes.
but the flexibility to kind of build those custom structures on top,
Exactly.
depending on, your specific needs. That way you're not reinventing the wheel every time.
Exactly. And that's what's so crucial, that balance
Right.
between the standardization
Right.
and then that customization,
Right.
because that's how it's going to be successful
Okay.
in this messy, complicated world of healthcare.
Yeah, I'm starting to like see the elegance of this whole system.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we've got these building blocks, we've got the customization, we've got the instruction manuals.
The implementation guides.
Right. But let's get down to, like, brass tacks.
Okay.
How does this actually work in practice?
Yeah.
Is it as simple as, like, plugging two systems together?
Right.
And, like, magically the data just starts flowing?
It would be amazing if it was that simple.
Right. Right.
It is a bit more nuanced than that.
Okay.
But the underlying principle, I think, is actually pretty easy to grasp
Okay.
because it's very similar to how we navigate the web today.
Okay. I like it.
So imagine this, right? Your electronic health record system needs to access, let's just say, a patient's medication list
Okay.
from a different system.
Okay.
What it does is it's going to send a request
Okay.
to the FHIR server, and it's going to use a specific web address,
Okay.
very similar to what you would type into your browser,
Got it.
to pinpoint that exact data that it needs,
So then, boom, the server sends back that data
packaged up.
in a way that the system understands. Oh my gosh, after years of, like, wrestling with these incompatible systems,
Yes.
this sounds revolutionary.
It's a game changer.
Right.
But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
Because, all those videos, they focus on kind of like the what of FHIR. But we also have to remember that secure data exchange is absolutely paramount.
Oh, yeah.
We are talking about sensitive health information.
Right. It's like FHIR is providing, like, the language and the structure for the conversation,
Yes.
but we still need, like, those security measures.
Absolutely. You've got to protect the information in that
Right.
conversation.
To protect the content of that conversation.
Yes. And FHIR, just like any language, it evolves.
Okay.
It adapts.
Right.
So those videos, that's a snapshot
Right.
of its current state. But this is a journey.
It's ongoing.
This is not a destination.
That's a good reminder, yeah. So I feel like we've covered, like, the basics,
Yeah.
like the resources profiles, implementation guides, but it also kind of feels like we're just scratching the surface here.
We are just scratching the surface.
Because these videos hint at, like, a whole other level of complexity within FHIR.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when it comes to, like, organizing and connecting all of these, like, digital building blocks.
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
It's not just about those individual pieces of data.
Right.
Right. It's how they relate to each other.
Right.
It's how FHIR actually allows us to represent the interconnectedness
Yes.
of a patient's health journey.
It's like we're moving beyond just, like, data exchange
Yes.
and into this, like, realm of, like, building this comprehensive, nuanced picture.
Exactly. Exactly. And they actually have some key resources for that specific purpose.
Okay, like what?
So one of them is a list resource.
Okay.
And as its name suggests, it lets you group those related pieces of information.
Okay.
You can create lists of medications, problem lists, past medical history, you name it.
Oh, wow. So instead of these, like, resources just, like, floating around in isolation. Great.
Now we can create these like curated collections that tell a more complete story.
Precisely. And it gets even more sophisticated.
Okay, how so?
So they have what is called the composition resource.
Okay.
And think of this as like the instruction manual for a complete clinical document.
Got it.
It outlines the structure, the format. It specifies which resources are included, how they're organized.
So it's like having like a digital template basically for a discharge summary, operative report, referral letter,
Yes,
but with that added benefit of FHIR's like interoperability.
exactly. And that's where you see the true power.
Yeah.
Because it's not just exchanging data points.
Right.
It's creating this unified, comprehensive view of the patient's health journey.
This is incredible. Okay, this is incredible.
It's really cool.
There was one resource that stood out to me as particularly innovative.
Okay, which one?
The questionnaire resource.
Ah, yes.
It's like FHIR isn't just about exchanging like the existing data that's out there.
It's also like a tool for gathering new information.
Yes.
In a very like structured, interoperable way.
You're getting it. And that was a key thing for them.
Right.
They wanted to be able to support a wide range of workflows.
Oh, wow.
So think about it. All the forms, patient intake forms, satisfaction surveys, research questionnaires, all of that can be represented using this structure.
Wow. So instead of that data just being siloed away,
Exactly.
you can collect it in a standardized way
Yes.
from the get-go, which means it's like immediately shareable, analyzable,
And that has huge implications for things like patient-reported outcomes, assessments, even public health initiatives.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I think one of the most impressive things about that questionnaire resource is just how flexible it is.
Oh, incredibly flexible.
Right, because it allows for branching logic.
Yes.
Which basically means the questions asked can change dynamically.
Based on how they answered the previous questions.
Yeah. Right, based on the patient's previous answers. So it's like a personalized and interactive experience.
That's exactly what they were going for.
That's amazing. That's a game changer.
It is.
Because it means you're getting more precise, more relevant data.
Yes.
But also ensuring it's structured, it's interoperable from the outset.
From the beginning. And then once that questionnaire is completed, all those responses packaged up neatly into a questionnaire response resource.
Okay.
Which can then be stored, it can be shared, it can be analyzed seamlessly.
So it's like this amazing feedback loop.
Yes.
Right? Where the data can flow from clinicians to patients, back to researchers, public health agencies, everyone.
That's a key point because, again, FHIR's potential goes way beyond just the hospital walls or the doctor's office.
It's bigger than that.
It's about connecting all these different parts of healthcare.
It's about the bigger picture.
To create that more coordinated, data-driven, patient-centric approach to care.
I love it. This is amazing. We've only just scratched the surface here.
Oh, we are just getting started.
These videos are packed with so many more fascinating details about how FHIR works.
It's incredible.
From the technical intricacies to the data types to the collaboration that's happening behind the scenes.
Well, and that's what's really key.
Yeah.
They get it that its success is reliant on collaboration.
Yeah.
It's not just about the technology. It's about the people. It's about the developers, the clinicians, the researchers, the policymakers.
It's about everyone working together toward this common goal.
Exactly, because it's going to take all of us.
Right, and that's what makes me so hopeful, right?
Yes.
It's not just about the technology itself. It's about the people behind it, working together to build this more connected, more efficient, more patient-centered healthcare system. This is great.
It's exciting. And that collaborative spirit you were just talking about, it's led to some really incredible tools and resources for working with FHIR.
That's awesome.
We're not just talking about theoretical concepts anymore.
Right.
There's a whole ecosystem of practical tools.
Cool.
That make it way more accessible.
Yeah, that's what's so encouraging is that it's not just hype. It's people are actually building the tools and the infrastructure to make this vision of this truly interoperable system a reality.
Exactly.
And there was this one video, I think it even highlighted a collection of open source tools.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
That just seem like a dream come true.
Yeah, it's amazing.
For anyone who wants to get their hands dirty with FHIR.
Yeah, one of them I really like is called HAPI.
HAPI, okay.
Which basically provides a really safe and easy way to experiment with FHIR servers. You can test out different resource interactions.
Okay.
You can mock up API calls.
That's amazing.
It's like having FHIR Playground.
Right, where you can swing on the monkey bars of interoperability.
Yes, without breaking anything.
Right, exactly. But let's maybe shift gears just a little bit.
Okay.
And talk about the data itself.
Okay.
FHIR provides this framework, this structure, but it's the actual data within those structures that holds the real value, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And one of the things that I think FHIR does really well is it handles those little intricacies of healthcare data, especially those unique identifiers that are just so crucial for accurate record keeping. We're talking about medical record numbers, health plan IDs, insurance identifiers.
All those codes.
All those codes, those numbers.
Yes.
That uniquely identify individuals.
It's a lot to keep track of.
Oh my gosh, it's like herding cats sometimes.
It is.
Trying to keep track of all those identifiers. But it sounds like FHIR has a pretty good system for taming those beasts.
They do.
Okay.
They really thought about this. They use a specific data type called Identifier to represent those. But it's not just storing that string of characters.
Right.
It's about providing context.
Okay, so what kind of context are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Because in healthcare, context is everything.
Exactly, because a medical record number by itself doesn't tell you much.
Right.
You need to know which system issued that number, right?
Right.
So what FHIR does is it captures that information by storing both the system and the value of an identifier.
Okay, so it's like tagging it
Yes.
with its origin story.
Exactly.
Okay, so this number came from this hospital. This ID was issued by that insurance company?
Yep.
So you understand the significance.
And you're not just looking at like a random jumble of numbers.
Right.
So it just really cuts down on the risk of those mix-ups.
Right, which we know can have very serious consequences in healthcare.
Huge consequences.
No more accidentally, like assigning one patient's lab results to another patient.
Right, exactly.
Just because their medical record numbers happen to be similar.
Exactly. It takes the guesswork out of it.
That's good. That's reassuring.
It is. It's reassuring.
Especially for something as critical as patient identification.
Absolutely. And that attention to detail, it also extends to how FHIR handles dates and times.
Ooh, yeah. Tell me about it. Dates and times. Is that appointment 2:000 p.m. Eastern time, or is it Pacific time?
Oh, I know.
Was that lab result, like, time-stamped using the 12-hour clock?
Yeah.
The 24-hour clock?
Oh, my gosh. It's enough to make your head spin.
I know, it's a lot.
And don't even get me started on daylight saving time.
No, don't even go there.
I know. FHIR to the rescue.
Okay, good.
They use standardized formats
Okay.
for representing all of those dates and times.
Okay, so everyone's on the same page.
Exactly.
No matter where they are, what time zone they're in.
Exactly.
Music to my ears. No more deciphering cryptic timestamps or like doing time zone gymnastics in my head.
I love it. It brings order to the chaos.
It does, it does. But what about those situations where, like, you know, the information we need isn't explicitly stated
Okay.
in a resource?
Right.
How do you, like, read between the lines, so to speak?
Okay. Well, this is where those extensions come in handy.
Oh.
Remember those, like, specialized Lego pieces we talked about?
Right, right.
They give you that flexibility
Okay.
to add those custom data elements
Okay.
to those existing resources
Okay.
without, like, messing up that core structure.
So if the, like, standard resources are like the main text,
Yeah.
the extensions are like the little footnotes.
Yes.
Yeah, or like annotations
That's
that give
it.
you like a deeper understanding.
That's a great way to put it.
But are we worried at all, like, that we're going to create a Tower of Babel situation here?
Oh, that's a great question.
If everyone's adding their own custom extensions,
Right. Right.
are we going to end up back where we started?
Right, where nothing can talk to each other.
Right, where no one understands each other.
That is a valid concern, and that's exactly why
Right.
FHIR really stresses those profiles
Right.
and the implementation guides.
Right.
So you have the flexibility,
Right.
but you've got to have these guidelines in place.
Okay.
So everybody's using it responsibly.
Right. It's that balance again.
It's all about that balance.
Right.
Customization, but also standardization.
Customization without sacrificing interoperability.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. What about relationships between different pieces of information?
Oh, good question. Because, I mean, we know in healthcare,
Right.
it's those connections
Yes.
that really give you the insights.
Totally.
And they have a really clever way of representing those connections.
Okay.
It's called references.
References. Okay.
And essentially what they are like hyperlinks
Got it.
within a document.
Okay.
So you can jump from one piece of information
Another.
to another.
It's like those Wikipedia rabbit holes that I always fall down.
Exactly. You start with one thing, and then the next thing you know, you're reading about, like, I don't know.
The history of rubber ducks.
Exactly.
Yes.
But in this case, they're not going to random Wikipedia pages.
Mm-hmm.
They're pointing to other FHIR resources.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So it's creating that web
Right. That interconnected web of data.
of data
That tells a much bigger story.
and a more holistic picture.
Okay. So give me an example.
Okay, so let's just say you have a condition resource,
Mm-hmm.
which represents a patient's diagnosis.
Got it.
That condition resource might have a reference
Okay.
to a procedure resource.
Okay.
So it's linking that diagnosis to a specific surgery they had.
So instead of just seeing like a diagnosis
Right.
in isolation,
You see the whole picture.
you start to understand.
Why, the what.
This is powerful stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
And it gets even cooler
Yeah.
because it's not just those direct one-to-one relationships.
Mhm.
They also support something called resource chaining.
Resource chaining, what is that?
So this lets you create like these complex queries that can actually go through like multiple levels of relationships.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's like a super powered search engine.
It is.
For healthcare data. Wow. Okay, give me an example of how that might work.
Okay. So let's just say you're trying to identify all the patients who have undergone a specific procedure
Okay.
performed by a particular surgeon.
Okay.
So you would start with a procedure resource, link that to a practitioner resource
Okay.
to filter down by that specific surgeon. And then from there, link that to the patient resource.
Wow.
So you can get that information.
It's amazing. It's like you're following these threads of information wherever they go.
Exactly. It's really powerful stuff.
That's really cool. So it seems like, FHIR is constantly like evolving.
Oh, absolutely. Constantly evolves.
To meet the needs of this ever-changing healthcare landscape.
It has to.
Right.
To stay relevant.
And speaking of evolution, I know one video mentioned these things called like FHIR Releases.
Yes.
Which seem like kind of a big deal in the FHIR world.
They're a big deal. They're essentially, it's like a structured release cycle.
Okay.
Similar to like how software companies release new versions of their products.
Got it.
Each release will introduce new features. There might be refinements. Sometimes even like old components get deprecated.
Okay, so it's a living standard.
It has to be.
Right, it's constantly being updated.
It's constantly adapting.
But with all these changes happening, how do we make sure that like systems that were built on older FHIR versions can still talk to the ones that are using like the latest and greatest?
Right, that is a concern.
Right, that could be a recipe for disaster.
It could.
Right.
But thankfully the FHIR community understands that.
Okay, good.
And so they've built in mechanisms to ensure backward compatibility.
Okay, good.
Whenever possible.
So the newer versions can still understand data formatted using those older versions?
Exactly.
Okay, that's a huge relief.
It is. The last thing anybody wants is to be stuck with outdated systems.
Right, or forced to do these like massive upgrades just to keep the data flowing.
It's all about making it as seamless as possible.
Right, right. And FHIR does that. It's important to remember, though, that FHIR, while powerful, is a tool.
That's all it is.
And its success depends on how we choose to use it.
100%.
Right. It's up to us, the developers, the clinicians, the policymakers, everyone, to use it responsibly.
To use it ethically.
Right. To actually build that more connected system.
Yeah.
To empower patients.
Absolutely.
Improve care.
That's the goal.
Right. It's about using its capabilities for good.
Exactly.
For something better. To drive real change.
Yes.
In healthcare. It's really inspiring to see how FHIR is like changing the conversation around healthcare data.
It is.
It's not just about like the bits and the bytes and the technology itself.
Right.
It's about like what it allows us to do.
Exactly.
Like empowering patients.
Empowering patients, improving care coordination.
Right. Improving care coordination.
Creating a more patient-centric healthcare system.
Exactly. And what I think is so cool is like they designed this.
Yeah.
Not just for the tech-savvy people.
Right.
It's for everyone.
It's with accessibility in mind.
And I noticed that like throughout all these videos, there's this real emphasis on human readability.
Absolutely.
Which I think is so important.
It is.
Because it's like we're trying to like bridge that gap between this like sometimes intimidating world of technology and like the very human experience of healthcare.
It's about making those connections. And that's one of the things I really appreciate.
Yeah.
They've got the human readable summaries embedded right within those resources.
Right, which we talked about a little bit earlier.
We did. And I think that's just one example of how FHIR is really trying to be both.
Okay.
Machine readable, so you get that seamless data exchange.
Right.
But then also human friendly.
Right.
So that clinicians, even patients, can look at it and be like, okay, I understand what's being shared here.
It's like the universal translator.
Yes.
For healthcare data.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that. That's brilliant.
All right.
It is. Because it's not just about the translation. It's about building trust.
Oh, 100%.
When patients and clinicians understand the information.
Yes.
It creates transparency.
Exactly.
Collaboration.
It's not this like scary thing in the background that no one really knows what it is.
Right. And they don't have control over it.
Right.
This gives them that control.
And that empowerment is so important.
It is. Yeah. I mean, this has the potential to really give patients more control over their health information.
Right.
So that they can access it, manage it, share it with their providers more easily.
Right. Imagine a world where we're not like reliant on fax machines. Oh my gosh. I know, right?
And paper records.
Yes.
To get things done. It feels like we're on the verge of a real paradigm shift here.
I think so too. Where data is no longer this barrier.
Right.
It's actually the bridge. to better care.
Better outcomes.
Better outcomes.
More connected system.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this so important.
Yes.
Because it's not just about technology for technology's sake.
Right.
It's about leveraging that power.
To make a difference, to solve real problems.
Exactly.
This has been eye-opening, this whole deep dive into FHIR.
It has.
It really feels like a glimpse into the future.
It does.
A future where data is flowing,
Yes.
patients are empowered, and healthcare is actually connected.
That's the dream.
And, like, what's so cool is that it's not like some far-off dream.
Right.
It's being built right now.
Right now.
And FHIR is, like, leading the charge.
Absolutely. And the most amazing part is that we all get to be a part of it. That collaborative spirit.
It's essential. Because the future of healthcare data,
Yes.
it's being written right now.
And we have this incredible opportunity
We do.
to shape it into something truly transformative.
And that is something worth getting excited about.
It is. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
My pleasure. It's been a great conversation.
It has. And until next time, keep exploring.